Welcome to the Don't Pick the Scab podcast with the premise of connecting men over 40 with the tools and community to thrive in their divorce recovery either before, during, or after a divorce. Welcome, everybody out there, to Don't Pick the Scab podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome McKenzie to the show. He's a true advocate for men's healing and growth. He was raised in a home that opened its doors to foster children. McKenzie learned early on how language and compassion can help people navigate trauma. But growing up in a house full of challenges, he also developed what Dr. Robert Glover calls nice guy syndrome, always seeking approval, struggling with self-worth, and facing repeated relationship failures. After reaching rock bottom, homeless, and alone, McKenzie joined a men's support group in Chicago and discovered the tools he once used to help others, and he could transform his own life. He sold his marketing agency, invested in wellness, and dedicated himself to supporting men's emotional health. Now with years of experience, coaching men worldwide, and he's here to share his journey and his exclusive system for unlocking power, purpose, and possibility. Get ready to explore how you, too, can find true freedom after divorce. Go ahead and introduce yourself, McKenzie. We'll go from there.
David, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, your intro really hit it on the head. I've come from a similar journey that I think a lot of other men can relate to, developing nice guy syndrome, having issues with holding and keeping healthy relationships. And so when I found kind of the system that worked for me, I was encouraged, similar to you, to get into facilitation, to get into coaching, to help other men experience the same transformation that I experienced. And I've now worked with thousands of men from all around the world. I meet with men navigating divorce, navigating separation, navigating relationship issues now every day for the past 5-6 years. And it has been eye-opening to me to see so many different paths intersect at similar patterns, similar outcomes. So it's fascinating work, and I love doing it every single day.
So what does nice guy syndrome mean to you? Break that down for the audience.
Yeah, so it was a concept developed by a man named Dr. Robert Glover. He wrote a book on it called No More Mr. Nice Guy. So a lot of people come to me during or after reading the book. And essentially, the way I like to describe nice guy syndrome is you are looking for external validation to empower yourself internally. You're seeking that approval from everyone else in order, or you're trying to control everyone else's perception of yourself in order to validate something in yourself, or in order to fill a gap that you may feel in your life. And Dr. Robert Glover talks a lot about how toxic shame really is the driving force for that. This innate feeling that I am bad, that there is a problem with me. And so therefore, I'm going to do certain things to try to prove to other people that I am not that bad thing that I'm telling myself I am. And so it really is it's a mind gymnastics that's playing out in your head as you go through your life, believing and thinking that you're a nice guy. And the outcome of that is appearing nice to people, appearing kind, appearing generous, appearing you're this just amazing guy, but deep down, those qualities, those things are further enraging and further validating that inner shame that you may feel. It's a very complicated pattern that most men develop at some point, especially if they struggle with a relationship, but it's one that is solvable, and it is one that one can move through. So in essence, that's how I would explain nice guy syndrome.
Why do you think it happens so much after post-divorce when guys are out there trying to date? Why does it come to the forefront? It's almost like a role.
Yeah. So we have to understand when nice guy syndrome develops. It develops in boyhood. There are patterns and experiences that you have growing up that work. Right? And they work at the C+ level, and they work just enough to keep them, right? One of the things is called covert contracts, where I'm going to do something nice for you, but rather than doing it out of an act of generosity, I'm going to store it away, and I'm going to cash it in when it best suits me, right? And so in a relationship, that comes out in doing all these nice things for your partner. And then when they approach you about a problem, you just unload the garbage on them. I've done this for you. I've done that for you. I've done this for you. You've cashed those things in. All those acts of generosity, just because you loved them, were actually weaponized and used against your partner. Those kind of patterns and systems develop at boyhood. And there's so many different reasons why it develops in boyhood, but really men experience it and feel it in a relationship, and especially when the relationship starts to spiral, because there's actually someone who's really close to them for the first time who exposes it. And most of the time when I receive a man who looks to do coaching or looks to join groups, they have just realized this huge roadblock in their ability to have a genuine connection with another person. So it's something that you carry for your whole life, but you don't realize you have it until someone calls you out on it.
What did you learn from joining a men's support group for the first time? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget it. I came into it the same way a lot of guys go into it, thinking that I have very individualistic or unique problems, and that my thought process, that the feelings that I was experiencing, the narratives that I had in my head were horrible and awful and something that I could never admit to anyone. And it wasn't until I got into a support group that I realized every single man out there thinks and feels the same way. Every single man struggles with the same sort of struggle with monogamy that I did. Every single person struggled with being truthful and being honest with ourselves, and therefore being honest with a partner. And so when I experienced those things, and I experienced that other men were feeling the same way and were able to move through it, I was hooked, and I ended up going to as many support groups as I possibly could, even ones that didn't particularly pertain to me. And so it is something that is heavily illuminating, and I see that in group every day, guys who have that same switch that turns that I had that first session, and that alone is the rush to keep going.
So it's almost you turn into a support group junkie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and we see that a lot in groups where it's like someone joins, they open up for the first time, and they realize, oh my gosh, that went a lot better than I was expecting. And then they're hooked, and they just come to every single one they possibly can.
How does empathy and communication play a part in healing from nice guy syndrome?
Communication is the key to unlocking a lot of what's keeping you back. A lot of guys, let's talk about beliefs first, because beliefs are something that hold men back more than they may think. A belief I describe is nothing more than a conclusion or a decision that you've made based off of circumstantial evidence, based off of something that just happened once, twice, whatever. You say, oh, I'm never going to do that, or, oh, I hate this. You're creating a condition in your life. And one of those conditions that hold a lot of men back is, I'm really bad at talking. I'm really bad at discussing my feelings. I'm terrible at being honest. They put themselves in these conditions that create serious roadblocks in their life. And so what we work to do is, in order to get better at communication, we have to first get better at how we lead in solving problems. Are we leading with thinking we're bad at describing our emotions, thinking we're bad at communication? Or are we going to switch and pivot and lean more towards approaching our challenges with curiosity? One of the biggest tools I tell men to really start to practice is, you want to get better at communication? Great. Lead with curiosity. If you lead with curiosity, a lot of the other tools begin to fall into place. But a lot of men, especially nice guys, can't do that. And they can't do that because, number one, they've put themselves in a box where they have beliefs that they constantly reinforce. I'm bad at communicating, or I suck at feelings. And they come at it working to defend their ego, working to protect that inner shame inside of them. And so they're not actually listening for the response, they're listening for the counter. And as a result, you have very contentious arguments with a partner or with your friends. And so how can communication be used? It can be used by focusing and centering your communication around curiosity.
And this is one I thought about. Do nice guys have a hard time with self-care?
Yes, there is I do see a lot of patterns in which men struggle with taking time for struggle with focusing on what are the thoughts and feelings that are inside of them, not because they don't think it's important, but because they feel as though it's a waste of time. It doesn't actually solve the problem. We like things as men tactile and tangible. We like things to be done, right? We want to solve it. And that is not how we solve problems in a relationship. We can't solve it by just working harder at our job. We can't solve it by just doing more nice things for people around us. We have to solve it by looking our partner in the eye and asking her quality questions and being able to have a quality conversation about what's been bothering you. And I think a lot of men struggle with the focus being on them because once they get going, it's hard for them to stop because they start to just unload all the baggage. I see it far too often where men are very guarded and try to present an image to somebody they're dating. And once they feel that trust is established, they unleash the dog shit. And the partner sits there, the new girlfriend sits there going, "Where's this coming from? I didn't sign up for this. What is going on? This isn't the man I started to date."
Dogs out.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is why communication and prioritizing what's going on inside of you is so very important in this process, because you cannot present an image of somebody who is immune to pain and immune to problems, because number one, your partner can't relate to that. They don't see you as human if you're acting like that. They see you as something bigger than human. And it's all just a sham, and it's all just an act, because there is stuff going on inside of you. And what we work to do in group a lot is ripping those things out, getting those exposed to other men, and showing you that, oh, there is something beyond this swirling feeling of shame and disappointment because you've had horrible patterns in the past, porn addiction, infidelity, whatever it may be, and you feel like because of that, you're just a bad person. And that's just not the case. That's just not true. And so it's really difficult for men to understand that. But once they get past that hurdle, it becomes a lot easier.
What role does community play in men's recovery journey? You touched that a little bit with the last question, but what role does community play?
It's vital. Most men, especially men who struggle with nice guy syndrome, tend to have one emotional outlet, and it's their partner. It's their wife. It's their girlfriend. And the reason so many men find themselves in a corner in which they just force themselves to make a decision on whether to leave or to stay with a partner comes down to the fact that they don't want to lose their one emotional outlet. They don't want to lose the one person they can go to with challenges and issues. They don't want to lose the one person who truly gets them and truly understands who they really are behind closed doors. Because if they lose that person, then all they have left is the act that they've been posing to their other friends, that they've been posing to their family, this person who's immune to pain, this person who doesn't talk about their problems because they don't have any, quote unquote. And that's just not true. And we do that and we gravitate towards one individual, which tends to be our partner or tends to be a woman, because they're open, they're willing to hear it, they're not running the risk of shutting you down, and we're able to maintain an act in front of everyone else around us. So the stakes are high when a relationship is falling apart for a guy, more so than a woman. What happens in group is that changes. We often talk about, in group, diversifying our relationships. Our partner is not going out with us so that they can bear all of our burdens. We have to take ownership of our burdens and disperse them out to different guys, especially guys who have been in the similar state. For instance, I have friends who are married. I go to them when there's relationship issues in my marriage. And then there are guys who have gotten really far in their career. I go to them when it comes to explaining issues in my career and how to navigate them. That way, if one goes away, if one, God forbid, passes away, if one starts to distance themselves from me, I'm not losing everything. I'm just losing one aspect of my network in which I can find an easier replacement for them because I'm relying on them for a lot less. So we always talk about diversifying your network. A lot of partners, a lot of women don't want men to give them all their shit. They want to focus on very specific shit, and they want you to take ownership on the rest. And part of taking ownership of it is going to other people who can understand it better. And that is the power of groups that you don't get from counseling, you don't get from therapy, is number one, you're with other like-minded men. You're with men who are going through the same thing as you, who are experiencing the exact same thing as you. And number two, you're connecting with men who have been through that dog shit and who can help you navigate through it. They can support you. They reach out to you. They check in on you. You'll experience a level of attention for yourself that you haven't experienced before because we've given each other permission to do. And a lot of men I find are willing to share, are willing to open up. They just need permission. And a lot of their relationships with other men, they don't have permission to do that. And so diversifying your network is the key to unlocking that growth that a lot of men get from group.
What parts of your marketing agency owner parts could like transfer to your wellness, being like a wellness advocate, and not just the marketing part, but what other parts of that kind of transferred from the marketing agency owner to being a wellness advocate?
Yeah, obviously there's like a business side to it. Starting my organization, Groups for Men, out of a marketing agency, there's a lot of natural transition that goes into that. But more important on the product side, marketing is all about communication. It's all about conveying a specific message. It's all about having someone leave with an impression and trying to plan out what that impression is. We've translated that a lot into our groups, and with my coaching team, which are world class, we have really recruited some of the best coaches out there in the country to help run the organization. We really focus on messaging first and value first. I think it's very easy in a coaching environment to make it all about you, right? You branding yourself, you're branding how you've overcome challenges and how you've navigated issues. But I have found that a more effective way in our practice to brand is we brand outcome, we brand transformation, and we put things that are very complicated into easy to solve systems. And in marketing is in essence what you're doing. You are trying to put something that's complicated to describe, like a product or service, and you're trying to translate that into an easy to solve or easy to participate system for the end user. It's so hard to navigate life and your challenges. There's so many intricacies, there's so many variables, and what we're able to do is take those in, bring you into our system, and have you come out in 6, 8, 12 months a completely different person. And we can prove that with data. We can prove that with testimonials, and we can prove that with the outcomes. We've had so many people save their marriage. We've had so many people able to move through divorce more quickly and more efficiently and heal from it quicker as a result of our program. And we've really developed a fantastic system that I wouldn't have been able to develop in the way that we have it if it wasn't for being able to get really good at messaging and being able to get really good at showing the end user a step-by-step process on how to navigate things.
How does nice guy syndrome relate to the co-parenting space?
A great question.
I'm thinking about it and I'm perplexed, but go ahead.
Let's talk about what it means to be a father. Most men struggle to realize until it's sometimes too late that good parenting and being a good father means appreciating, understanding, and respecting your value as a man. Kids don't gravitate towards a father who is unavailable, a father who is always doing something nice for other people, a father who isn't emotionally invested in their lives, a father who isn't willing to share his wisdom of the world to you. They appreciate and respect a father who can give those things. And a father can't do that without being emotionally available. I often say one of the most masculine things we can do is hold and create a safe space for other people to share, right? There's no income level. There's no status that teaches you that. What teaches you that is focusing on that. Regardless of whether your wife makes more than you, regardless of whether your ex-wife finds someone who makes more and is able to provide more for you, your kids are going to leave with you. They're going to leave you and move on to the world with a deep understanding and respect for whether you were able to hold space for them and able to make them feel safe or not. And that is the only thing they will walk away with from their childhood is, was my dad available or was he not? So when we look at how nice guy syndrome intertwines with coping, an element of nice guy syndrome, which is prioritizing ourselves and taking care of ourselves and understanding our value, because we can't contribute to we can't contribute to parenting, we can't contribute to being a father until we actually see our own innate value. And a lot of men don't. And so their parenting is largely distant, unavailable, not really willing to collaborate because they don't want to reveal the truth that they feel inside of them, which is, I'm not available. I can't be around because I don't want you to find out who I really am. And so that to me is first and foremost. Before we even talk about collaborating as parents, most nice guys can't even get there, can't even fathom that until we address that component.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the 3 Ps, power, purpose, and possibility. How did that come about and what does that mean?
Yeah. When I started in the men's space, you can read everything about the issues of the modern man, how 40% of women are now making more than men, how the college rates in men are declining college graduate rates are declining at record speeds. I'm one of those, right? I don't have a college degree. How more men are uninterested in joining the job market in the past 50 years than ever before. How men's wages have stagnated since the 1970s and haven't seen a rise since that, right? We can talk about all those problems and just riff off statistics all day, but there isn't a lot to talk about the solution. What I love about the nice guy syndrome system is it starts to give men solutions, but I believe it stops short of giving them the ultimate solution. There is a mindset, there is a focus, there is an innate pivot that one makes towards power that you can't get from just navigating nice guy syndrome. We have to first talk about when I developed my system on how to get men out of their habits and out of their issues and into transformation. We have to talk about the essence of self-improvement. There is a lot of self-help books. There is a lot of systems. There is a lot of programs that teach you how to better avoid your problems. And I believe what makes transformation and what I have seen from thousands of men around the world is that is a losing game, right? If you're navigating an addiction, just counting the days that you've avoided that addiction inevitably will bring you back to it, in my opinion. So rather than avoiding our problems, what I work to do with men is replace those problems with something that they value more. You have an issue with lying or you have an issue with porn. Rather than, oh, how are we going to avoid the porn? We sit there and go, what do we care about more? The porn or being more honest? Great. You want to be more honest? How can we do that? And we focus on the transformation being about replacement, not about avoiding. I have bad habits myself. If I sit there and work to avoid them and then they happen and they come back up, I'm going to feel shame. I'm going to feel guilt. I'm going to feel some of these feelings that men just spiral in. But if I work on replacing them, I can prove to my mind that the thing that I value more gives me a better result. And until you prove to your mind that you get a better result out of doing something else that you value more, you're going to keep gravitating towards that old pattern, that habit. So when we talk about the 3 Ps, power, possibility, and purpose, that is the essence of our mechanism, is we are going to find the things that give you power, the things that give you possibility, and the things that give you purpose. We are not in the business of diagnosing you. We are not in the business of navigating around your bad habits. We are in the condition of finding them, ripping them out, and planting something new in. And that is the essence of our platform. And what we do is when we start to understand that mechanism, we'll take a guy and start establishing their purpose. Because purpose, everyone thinks is really difficult and really challenging to establish. But we found a system that works. We found a system that really gives people the innate and real sense of having purpose. And as a result, everything else falls into place a lot simpler, a lot easier, and everything becomes a lot more tangible because we can always say, hey, how are you stepping into your purpose with this decision? You're thinking about leaving your wife. Great. Rather than sitting there and saying, oh, I just don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to mess up. I don't want her to think this. We're going to say, okay, how are you able to step into your purpose on this? Let's not talk about what you don't want. Let's start talking about what you want. And that's what needs to be driving our decision. So developing purpose is key in all of that. It opens up the possibilities and it opens up that innate power that's within you.
How can men cultivate more meaningful friendships and support networks? What are some of the things that men can do?
I'll be shameless first, and then we'll get into some other tactics, but joining an online group. We have a great, oh yeah. Groups to me are the key. What makes us unique is every group is run by a specially trained world-class coach that has navigated thousands of men's issues for years. And that's extremely helpful. There's other online groups out there, but they're run by just untrained facilitators who are just interested in doing it. And that's good if that facilitator has experience. But we have a coaching premise first and then support second. And so that really drives productive conversation in the groups. So yes, you can always join those online groups. We have it very accessible to most men. There's a free week-long trial, and then it's only $49 a month for all access pass to our groups. But beyond that, that doesn't solve all of the problems about cultivating a community. I often, when I talk to men about how to establish friendships in person, we have to understand how we've been trained to find friends. And we've been trained to find friends in convenient places. You go to school, I got some friends from my class. You go to college, great, I found friends in my fraternity. You go to work, great, I found some friends at my work. We're never trained on how to go out there and actually cultivate relationships beyond what are the ones that are convenient to us. And the problem that gives a lot of men when they get married is their wedding tends to be their goodbye party to all their friends, because
I've never heard it put that way.
Yeah, because yep. My friends, we all go to each other's. I'm in my 30s, and so everyone's getting married, everyone's having kids, and they hate it when I say that. But I'm like, let's see if this is their goodbye party or not. Because for men, it's cultivating that relationship is more important than establishing and maintaining friends. But really, establishing and maintaining friends will allow you to cultivate your relationship the way you want, because you're going to feel valuable. You're going to feel like you're connected with other people, and that gives you more innate joy and happiness in your life. And so you're able to translate and give that happiness and joy to your family. But if we focus on just trying to keep our relationship alive, we end up being miserable and angry and upset, and that doesn't translate well in a family environment. So we have to get out of this idea that we're going to find friends in convenient places, because once we get a job and once we get married, it's very difficult for us to go out into a community and find friends. What I always do is I ask men, what are the hobbies that your ideal friends are doing? And you know, it's amazing. It's amazing how little responses revolve around going to a bar and drinking. Most people say, I want friends who are into mountain biking. I would want my friends to be into traveling. I would want my friends to be into yoga, whatever it is. And I say, okay, that's going to be your hobby now. And you need to go out and join a mountain biking club. You need to go out and start participating in yoga, not because you're good at it, not because you like it, but because you're going to pick up those conversations in those environments with the men that you want to associate with. I found being someone who likes support groups, someone who likes to really take communication in the forefront and reflecting on deep experiences. I found that yoga, meditation, and Bible studies were the hobbies that I like the men who are in those. And so a lot of my friends tend to be those kind of people. And I am not flexible at all. I am not good at yoga at all. But it's not about that. It's about connecting with the people who are interested in those same things, because they have the personalities that I like to gravitate towards. And so we start, like everything, we start with habits. What are the habits that your friends you want have? And then we start developing those habits for ourselves. And that's how I believe we can cultivate a better in-person relationship with other men. Going to a bar and riffing about sports for 2 hours, difficult to connect with someone on that. Going on a golf course and drinking and just talking about nothing all day is not a way to cultivate friendships. There's a place for that, right? Like, you can have a hobby-based friendship, but you do need those ones where you can say, hey, man, my wife and I are going through a fight. I want to hear your interpretation. I want to hear what you think, whether you think I'm in the right or in the wrong. You can't get that from those just riffing off each other kind of relationships.
So 2 things with that one. Back when I was a facilitator at the divorce recovery seminar, all my friends were co-facilitators.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were just a group, but I've got two friends, deep friends from college that we were all roommates, and we're like 50, I'm sorry, 65, and we're still buddies. We've
Good.
been friends for 100 years. And what's interesting, though, even more better with that story, is they both married old girlfriends of mine.
Wow.
So you can't make that stuff up. But we're
No, you can't.
best buddies. Matter of fact, we have a conference call coming up on Sunday.
David, let me ask you on that. I bet that it took some effort to keep those relationships cultivated after college, right?
It did. It took effort. And we probably text once or twice a week. So you have to put the work in. You have to, and we talk about anything. And we try to get together every 3, 4, 5 years, which is difficult to do, but we do. But so what happened with one of my friends is that he had a big time Fortune 500 job and was very stressful. So his wife called me and the other friend. She goes, "Hey, Fred's having this tough time at work. Can you guys come out for a long weekend just to hang out with him?" I said, "Sure." So we got together, we got plane tickets, we went out there, we hung out for the weekend. And man, it was so much fun. And we surprised him. And she said he had a smile on his face for 2 months. Stuff like that. I hear what you're saying. And people have to cultivate those friends, man. You got to work at it. You got to put the work in because it just doesn't happen. Yeah.
I have a lot of guys who I coach who come to me saying I'm really bad at keeping friends. And I say, when you think about them, how often do you just call them? Never. Oh, okay.
How's that working out for you?
Let's start with when you think about them, call them. And don't get me wrong, David, like those convenient friends that you found in college or that you found in high school, like they can be valuable, but you have to cultivate them, right?
Yeah.
So many guys will have high school friends, and once they graduate high school, they never talk to them again. And they think about them all the time, but they don't just call them up and check in on them. And just by doing that, you're able to cultivate relationships no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you are in the world. I've worked really hard at this. Whenever I think of somebody, I will see to it that I try to call them or connect with them over text or phone call within 24 hours. I literally write their name down on my checklist of things to do during the day when I think about them, and I reach out to them. And the benefits of that are great. I travel a lot for work, and I know I always have a place to stay anywhere in the country because I make sure I cultivate my relationships. And so I hear you doing that, and I think that's really special and something.
Like you said, though, it took work, man. And also with friends, there's always, I see friends as circles. There's a small circle, there's a big circle. Some of the circles intersect, some of the circles don't intersect. And trying to navigate those circles sometimes is very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Just wait till you get older, buddy. Trust me. It'll be more and more better. What are some of the misconceptions about men's emotional health you wish people would stop believing? There's got to be some things.
Oh, yeah. Where to start? Oh, my God. I feel like half of my job is helping men not bear the responsibility of being called toxic, of being called evil, of being called a betrayer.
Just because they're men.
Just because they're men. There was a study done in which they wanted to see how parents interacted with their daughters versus their sons and see the difference between the two. And so they would sit in the car and parents would pick up their daughter. And if the daughter was having an experience or having a challenge, parents would ask how they feel about it. Is there something they need to do to help? Is there any way that they can help as their parents? And then when their son would get into the car, they noticed a very big difference with the way parents interacted with them. When the son would get in the car and was expressing a challenge or an issue, most parents would ask, "What'd you do about it?" The biggest challenge I have with men and the perception is that men need to solve the problem. And they always need to be the one who solves the problem. That's number one. Number two is this idea that men end up getting hyper-dependent on their partner and can't function without their partner. There was an SNL skit a few years ago of this like dependent husband who was just sitting around playing video games all day. And the wife goes up to him and pretends like talking to him like he's 5, saying, "Hey, you need to go to the store and do this on your own, okay?" and they make the guy out to be this stupid idiot, like who just can't do anything on their own. And basically, yeah. And so that kind of stereotype is alive and well, and men feel it, and all they do is work to avoid it. There is the notion that wanting traditional qualities in a relationship makes you a toxic male. Wanting to be the one who's the breadwinner and then wanting a wife who stays and takes care of the kids is not something that's desirable to anybody, when in reality, 60% of women still want that to be the case.
What is toxic masculinity? What exactly is it?
That's a great question. When I first started on this journey, I bought so many, man, I maxed my credit card out buying textbooks about masculinities, and I took a deep dive and read through them. I talked to different professionals in the men's health space. Nobody has a set definition, but essentially, because people take their own interpretation with it. One thinks is regular masculinity and traditional masculinity. The other interprets as toxic masculinity. I think most people, when they talk about toxic masculinity, are talking about a hegemonic masculinity. But regardless, like, masculinity isn't the problem. It's patterns that are the problem. And like, what I can interpret as a toxic pattern, you could interpret as a good pattern. And it's just about solving the patterns that don't work for us. And so what I hate and I can't stand is people putting people in buckets of toxic masculine men or red pill men or whatever it is. Like, we've got to understand that it's just a set of patterns, and a lot of it is good and some of it is bad. And so there is a lot of things that we need from men that are positive contributions to the world. And a lot of those would associate with the traditional style of masculinity. But what happens is, when we put the words together, toxic masculinity, we encourage men to vilify all aspects of masculinity, to feel shameful about wanting anything that's traditional. No, we need to keep those things. There's a lot that we need to keep in that. There's just a couple patterns within your masculinity that may be outdated and that may need to be updated. And the biggest one is just opening up and dealing with your problems rather than trying to just bury it and conceal it. That's a habit that we've gotten from 100 years ago, when we were dealing with great world conflicts. We were trained to bury our habits, and that has translated from fathers and sons for 100 years, and it has not changed. And that's the only thing that we need to adapt. Other than that, there's a lot of other masculine traits that we should embrace, because they push humanity forward. And that doesn't mean that we need to oppress women as a result, right? My favorite quote that I quote all the time is, and I read it from a study, that this group concluded that women were oppressed by their gender roles and men have been constrained by theirs. It's an and, not an or. And a lot of people think this problem to be an or, not an and. Yes, women were not liberated into the workspace until the 70s and 80s, and there's still more work to be done. It's done an amazing thing to our economy. We've been able to grow in ways we've never been able to grow before by liberating women into the workplace. But we have to address men feeling like their purpose is starting to die because they're unable to do the traditional things that men have been able to do, which is be the primary breadwinner for their family. And as a result, like I said earlier, men's wages have stagnated since the 70s. We have to address those problems. Right. We can't just vilify men because they've been at the top for so long. What we're going to end up seeing is a reverse. And I truly believe, David, and I don't have data to back this up, but I truly believe that's why you've seen an increase in violence with men, specifically the school shooters and things like that, and why 97% of them are male, is because we are losing our purpose as men. And as a result, we get radicalized into vilifying people and using violence as a way to express that.
Interesting. Yeah. McKenzie, this has been interesting, man. Usually I do a half hour. We're at 46:30. You're like breaking the bank, man. But hey, yeah. I appreciate you taking time. That was a deep dive. That was way deeper than I was ready for, but I'm glad. I'm glad we did it. Where can the people out there find you on the internet?
Really simple. groupsformen.com. It gives you all the resources you need. We have courses on how to navigate your relationship. We have groups that deal with everything and anything. And we have world-class coaches over there that we've been working to cultivate. It's free to sign up for the first week, and then it's $49 a month after that. All access pass to groups. And I promise that after a month, if you start showing up to groups, you will not be the same man. And so that is the only thing I would encourage men to do if they want to learn more, is join a group, give it a shot. Take the leap.
And we will have that on the show notes and go from there. But thank you very much, McKenzie, for hanging out with us this morning. And man, that was very interesting. I've been trying to figure out a title. Man, we're all over the place. So really interesting. Trying to find a title for this one.
When I start a group and I lead a group, sometimes I think I know what the topic's going to be, but then by the end of the 2 hours, I go, holy crap, have we veered into a different direction? So I appreciate you letting me weave and dive around, and I hope that you got something from it, David.
Oh, yeah. I learn something all the time, and we'll definitely have you back, but